And at 10, Cupid. First appearing in Green Arrow and Black Canary number 15 from 2009, Carrie Cutter, also known as Cupid, is a deranged Green Arrow attempted mimic, even if she isn't really that good with a bow in the comics, and former Special Ops soldier. Cupid first showed up in Star City at a scene of one of the Green Arrow's fights. She picked up the broken tip of one of his arrows and carved the infamous heart with an arrow through it onto her chest. She then began killing off some of his notable enemies in the hope that she may begin to fulfill his heart's desire. And she killed the guy who cut her hair because she never wanted someone else to have hair that perfect. Yeah, Cupid is in essence Oliver's Joker in a way, since there is no Cupid without Green Arrow, and let's be honest, they're both absolutely nuts. The character did appear in the show, however was not nearly as crazy, and quickly turned her affection to Deadshot after joining the Suicide Squad. Cupid being obsessed with Arrow was kinda like a 1 to 2 episode thing in the show. And at 9, Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia was introduced in Green Arrow number 12 from 2002 and was created by Kevin Smith and Phil Hester. Onomatopoeia first appears when he murders a female crime fighter named Vertigo, after telling her his name. The interlude in which this occurs serves as a lead into the Sounds of Violence, and is the main villain of a short storyline that runs from issues 13 to 15 of that Green Arrow run, which is called The Sounds of Violence. Just the sheer ridiculousness of this character is enough to earn him a spot on this list for me though. And the great thing is that this character only works in comic books unless you give him like superpowers. Saying bang in a cinematic setting only makes for an awkward moment after a real gunshot unless you saying bang actually makes a gunshot. Since in movies gunshots sound nothing like that and you can't really make that sound with your mouth. Onomatopoeia just talks in onomatopoeia, which is spelling out sounds like bang or crack or snap. And this character is something I really find interesting for this reason. Plus, this man looks like he's a guard from Squid Game with like his mask thing. Look, I wonder where Squid Game got the idea, and I think it was this guy. And at 8, Prometheus. Created by Grant Morrison and Arnie Jorgensen, the most recognized version of Prometheus made his first appearance in New Year's Evil Prometheus from 1998. Commonly an adversary of the Justice League, Prometheus would also serve as an enemy to Batman, Green Arrow, and Midnighter. Prometheus possesses no superhuman abilities, but has undergone intense physical and mental training and utilizes an extensive range of equipment and technology, just like Batman does. However, Prometheus is probably the most known in the Green Arrow community for being the start of the Trial of Green Arrow storyline, commonly known as the worst Green Arrow storyline of all time, where Oliver kills Prometheus after he bombs Star City, kills Roy's daughter, and cuts off Roy's arm, and then Oliver gets put on trial for murder. The character also appeared in the Arrowverse as Assistant District Attorney Adrian Chase, which some assumed was going to be revealed as Vigilante, but Adrian Chase just turned out to be an alias used by Justin Claiborne's son after plotting revenge after the Arrow killed his father off in off screen in season 1. Yeah. And at 7, Parasite. The Raymond Maxwell Jensen version of the Parasite first appeared in Action Comics number 340 from 1966, and is basically like some weird form of mind melder that has the ability to temporarily absorb the life energy, superpowers, and knowledge of their victim. The character was actually created by Jim Shooter, who was 13 when he thought of the character. Following an encounter with a strange visitor, however, the Parasite's powers were enhanced and enabled him to retain the energy he takes for longer, as well as granting Jones, the next Parasite, the ability to shapeshift. He can now physically morph into his victims right down to their DNA, being able to access their memories, gain their natural abilities, and mimic their voice, which I think is pretty damn dangerous. At least it only lasts for a certain length of time though. However, Parasite also absorbs the weaknesses of superpowered individuals, even if someone else he absorbs has an immunity to it. And at 6, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mxyzptlk possesses reality warping powers with which he enjoys tormenting Superman or just making life difficult because he's like a little sibling. His portrayal has been varied, with him being an outright supervillain in some instances and an anti-hero in others. But in most of Mx's appearances in DC Comics, he can be stopped only by tricking him into saying or spelling his own name backwards, which sends him back to the 5th dimension that he calls home and keeps him there for at least 90 days. That's not even 3 months, bro. Come on. However, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, he was changed to having a new requirement that needed to be met for him to leave. That would change each story, such as Superman getting him to paint his own face blue. So, Mx getting Superman to make Mx paint his face blue, like his own face. This is one of the few villains that actually uses Superman's other weakness, magic, against him, since most just resort to kryptonite. This guy has the ability to warp reality and do basically whatever he wants, and since he comes from the 5th dimension, he isn't bound by the laws of 3rd dimensional beings, whatever that means. But bro, what is with your name? I get that it's supposed to be hard to say, so it's hard to say backwards, but come on. Cut a guy some slack. I talk about Five Nights at Freddy's all day. Okay, I don't have room in my brain for this. Halfway through, in at number 5, BIZARRO. Being first introduced in Superboy number 68 from 1958, BIZARRO was actually a teen at first. However, an adult version of the character was introduced in the Superman newspaper comic strip, but he was wearing a B on his chest instead of an S. However, in 1959, we saw an adult version of the character introduced into the Superman comic books, this time wearing an S, in Action Comics number 254. Despite his complicated history though, BIZARRO has all the powers of Superman except reversed. So instead of heat vision, he has freeze vision, flame breath, vacuum breath. Imagine a freaking BIZARRO vacuum. That would be blessed. Why hasn't anyone branded vacuums like that yet? Like, this is an untapped market. And yes, I do mean actual vacuums, you sickos. And his other abilities are also flipped, like being able to see through only lead. And BIZARRO is strengthened by green kryptonite, which only makes things worse for normal soups. Am I right? While BIZARRO never really seems to come out on top, does that mean that since everything for him is reversed, that he's actually winning all the time? Because if that is the case, I don't know if he should be on this list, because in his mind technically he would be undefeated, right? And at 4, General Zod. General Zod was first introduced in Adventure Comics number 283 from 1961 and is also a Kryptonian like Superman, therefore has the same powers, which makes him a pretty powerful adversary. It's like the whole conundrum of if you fought yourself, who would win? Or would you just keep fighting until you both collapse from exhaustion? However, what he has over Kal-El is experience. Being the leader of the Kryptonian military, Zod is an expert tactician and is trained in hand-to-hand combat. And while yes, they both pack a punch, knowing how to fight or predict your opponent's moves is also critical to winning. However, Zod's powers are often inferior to those of Superman, due to Superman being exposed to the yellow sun over the course of his entire life, while Zod typically only gets it for a short period of time before being returned to the Phantom Zone. This greater power combined with the superior control and experience with it gives Superman an edge over Zod's actual like fighting skills, so that he does end up losing more commonly than not, if ever. So sorry Zod. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Damien Darhk. Damien Darhk was the big bad for season 4 of Arrow, and ultimately was one of the most powerful villains Oliver had ever faced in the show, or even still has ever faced. Using a totem found on Lian Yu, because of course it was, everyone who dies around Damien can be absorbed as some form of mystical power that grants him plenty of different powers, much like those granted to Jedi through use of the Force. I'm not even kidding. Damien can stop people in their tracks, choke them, drain the life from them just by touching them, he has super strength, he can catch arrows midair with magic. Not to mention the team up in Legends of Tomorrow with Malcolm Merlyn and Eobard Thawne. Damien did ultimately eat the dust though at the end of season 4, when Oliver, with the positive vibes of an entire city behind him, ends up being able to overpower Dark's magic even after an entire city of deaths was powering him. Haven Rock's destruction was one of the turning points of the series, with tens of thousands of people getting killed in the explosion. Damien at this point was literally able to disintegrate arrows and bullets without even trying. Oliver shoots arrows at him and they just like turn into smoke in front of him, and Damien's like, oh, I didn't even mean to do that. Penultimately, in at number 2, Deathstroke. Being introduced in the New Teen Titans number 2 in 1980 as Deathstroke the Terminator, Deathstroke is often seen as the archenemy to the Teen Titans. However, the character has also served as a villain for Batman, Green Arrow, and the Justice League, and is the main antagonist of Arrow Season 2. The show seems to be a more powerful version though when talking about brute strength, since his blood at this point contains Mirakuru, a basically super soldier serum that was ironically again found on Lian Yu and used to save Slade's life. After the Mirakuru is in his bloodstream though, he develops serious anger issues, and this is actually tied to his strength. The character returns in season 2 to extract revenge on Oliver by killing the ones he loves, but was ultimately defeated after Felicity injects him with the Mirakuru cure. The character then regains possession of all his marbles and helps Oliver in the season 5 finale, as well as having his own arc to find his son in season 6. Oliver helps Slade do this though, even though Slade killed Oliver's mother in the season 2 episode Seeing Red, but using a deleted scene from season 2, Oliver saves his mother in the post-crisis timeline that he creates, which is honestly something that I can respect. If you're recreating the universe, or the multiverse even, you might as well resurrect your dead friends and family, if you can. Finally, in at number 1, the Anti-Monitor. This is a show exclusive as far as I'm aware, since this played out totally differently in the comics. However, in the Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, Oliver dies while trying to save as many people from Earth 38 as possible, resulting in over 3 billion lives being saved while he held off the Shadow Demons. Later on though, Oliver, instead of being being resurrected by the Lazarus pit and having his soul restored to his body, ends up becoming the Spectre, a pseudo-god in the DC universe, and the catalyst to restoring the multiverse in this crossover. This also comes with a wicked set of powers, but nonetheless in a one-on-one fight Oliver both held his own and beat the Anti-Monitor head to head, which is freaking nuts. This man had literally wiped out the multiverse, and yet here we are with a new set of Earths because Oliver, with the help of the Paragons, willed it so. The battle was wicked, the death was heartbreaking, yet either way Oliver managed to defeat what was in essence a god, the god of the antimatter universe certainly, and gain some sweet powers to boot. Attaboy Oliver, you're who I pray to now. In a 10, Chameleon. Being the first villain Spider-Man ever faced way back in Amazing Spider-Man #1 in 1963, I think Chameleon is more underrated than he should be. Being able to look like anyone at any time is pretty damn overpowered, especially when you can use it to look like Spider-Man and use suction cups to stick to walls, even if that's slightly unrealistic. This character is especially powerful when he has superpowers, like in the 90s animated Spider-Man series, where he could simply look at you and end up transforming into you. That's actually insanely overpowered when you look at it like that, since he can also transform his clothes in that show. He could be fleeing from Spider-Man and then turn the corner and be anyone, so it's certainly someone to fear, unless they're the original version who has to use disguises and makeup to look like anyone they want, since that process takes time and it can't really be turned on or off at will. In at 9, Mysterio. First appearing in the Amazing Spider-Man #13 from 1964, Quentin Beck does not possess any superhuman abilities. He is a formal special effects artist, illusionist, and actor who uses his talents to commit crimes. He is a founding member of the Sinister Six as well, which is an impressive feat on its own considering how he has no powers. In the first battle with Spider-Man, after he frames Spider-Man for robbing the Midtown Museum, Mysterio obstructs the hero's spider sense with gas and dissolves his webbing with chemical abrasive. However, Spider-Man tricks Mysterio into revealing that he was the actual one who robbed the museum. Then Spider-Man revealed that he had captured that moment on tape. Mysterio was then sent to jail, blaming Spider-Man for his ruined career. However, the abilities of Mysterio are actually really impressive, with a lot of his powers seemingly only being able to be accomplished with CGI and post-production rather than with practical effects, which is what he was using. And I was actually going to be a special effects artist. I even started going to school for it, so trust me, his stuff is absolutely insane. And at 8, Venom. The symbiote that later became known as Venom was created by the Dark Elder God Null on a desolate nameless planet, where it saved a group of newborn baby rodentoid aliens by bonding to them and transforming them into apex predators. The symbiote's first human host though was Deadpool, who came across its prison while on Battleworld and, hoping for a makeover, wore the creature for a few minutes before realizing it was alive and trying to take over his mind. Concerned that his insanity would adversely affect it, Deadpool returned the symbiote to its prison moments before the arrival of Spider-Man, whose own suit had been damaged in the battle that was going on outside that Deadpool just seemingly was ignoring. Spider-Man had found the prison module that the symbiote was trapped in and activated the machine, which released the symbiote in the form of a black sphere. When Spider-Man touched the sphere, it covered his body and transformed into the iconic black and white costume with large white spider emblems on the chest and back derived from Null's dragon emblem actually. Venom, even though the concept was bought from a fan for what would now be worth $550, became one of, if not the most iconic Spider-Man villain, and with the ability to block out the spider sense, it's a surprise Peter even managed to come out on top. And at 7, Count Vertigo. Count Vertigo is the last descendant of the royal family that ruled over the small Eastern European country of Platlavia that was taken over by the Soviets and later became devastated by the Spectre. First introduced in World's Finest Comics #251 from 1978, the original comic book version is much more interesting than his modernized TV show counterpart. Also, basically all of these characters have appeared on the show just because they're also some of the Green Arrow's most iconic villains, so I will be making comparisons. Count Vertigo first appeared in Star City, where he attempted to steal back the jewels his parents had to sell when they had escaped to England after the war. The victim of a hereditary inner ear defect that affects his balance, Vertigo has a small electronic device implanted into his right temple that compensated for this problem. Tinkering with the device, Vertigo learned that he was able to affect other people's balance as well, distorting their perceptions of what they would see, and basically they couldn't tell up from down, which he calls vertigo, even though vertigo is just the sensation of a room spinning when it's not, instead of like not knowing where you're going, whatever. But still, this is how he works in the comics, whereas on the TV show, he was a dealer who made a substance known as vertigo that nearly gets Thea killed in a car accident because she was being dumb. Yet, even though he's killed off in season 2, vertigo as a substance remains present throughout the rest of the show. I think it made its final appearance in season 6 though, but I'm not sure. In at 6, Constantine DRAKON. First appearing in Green Arrow Volume 3, number 27 in 2003, Constantine DRAKON is a short guy, much like myself prior to grade 11. As a child, he was teased for this by other children, but once he started killing people at the age of 10, he found that he was no longer sensitive about his stature, which I guess is understandable, because why would you care if you're being made fun of if you could just kill them, right? I mean, it solves the problem. But when troll-like monsters began to terrorize the Elvast Corporation's construction sites, the company hired DRAKON to take care of it. However, he ran into the Green Arrow, who was also investigating the monsters. DRAKON was able to defeat Oliver, however he didn't kill him because he wasn't getting paid enough yet. He then seemed to act as if he was on retainer for Elvast, killing Black Lightning's niece because she discovered information that proved the troll monsters were actually created by Elvast through an imperfect vaccine side effect. Oh god, I can hear the comments now. In the TV show, DRAKON was Adam Hunt's head of security, and later on an assassin version of the character popped up played by a different actor. That was in season 3, and they thought that he had killed Sarah Lance, but I don't know if they intended for that to be the same character. On the wikis, they're kind of interchangeable. It depends on who you ask. Halfway through into number 5, Brick. Brick is certainly an interesting guy. Daniel Brickwell was originally a low-level henchman or enforcer for various mobsters in Star City, and also ran his own street gang. However, he had a brilliant criminal mind and higher aspirations to go with it. We love a dreamer. In the wake of a demonic attack against Star City, he began to expand his gang's criminal activities, particularly illicit substances sales, and push them into areas left vacant by other criminal organizations. However, this guy also has a power, first being introduced in Green Arrow Volume 3, number 40 from 2004, Brick is literally made of brick. In essence, the DC version of the Thing, but a bad guy. Which is a stark counter to his Arrowverse counterpart, who was just a mob boss introduced in season 3, even though metahumans were introduced into the Arrowverse that season as well, because Flash season 1 had started at that point. They could have just put him in Star City and made him a brick, but oh well. In the comics though, Green Arrow challenged Brick to a duel over who owned Star City. He shot a glue arrow into the back of Brick's mouth, blocking his throat and suffocating him, but rather than allowing him to die, Green Arrow saved him, warning him that if he steps too far out of line again, next time he's gonna die. But since this incident, his interference with law enforcement and the political figures of Star City had either ceased or vastly subsided, which I have to say is a pretty sexy power move from Oliver. And at 4, Merlyn. Long before becoming the vigilante Green Arrow, Oliver Queen was inspired to take up archery after hearing of the exploits of Arthur King, otherwise known as Merlyn the Magician, a master archer with acute accuracy. Years later, Merlyn challenged the Green Arrow to a public archery duel and defeated Oliver. With that victory under his belt, Merlyn vanished for years before resurfacing as a member of the League of Assassins. He and Green Arrow faced off against each other again when Merlyn attempted to assassinate Batman, but Green Arrow managed to intercept Merlyn's arrow with one of his own, saving Batman's life. Merlyn admitted that Green Arrow had improved since their last encounter, but he escaped before he could be captured. In the show, the Dark Archer is played by John Barrowman and is named Malcolm Merlyn, CEO of Merlyn Global Group and father to Tommy Merlyn and, spoiler alert for season 2, Thea Queen. He is a recurring character in the first 5 seasons and is a villain in most of his appearances, with the exception of a couple times throughout when it served his better interests. Spoiler alert yet again for season 5 because I feel obligated to because it's my favorite show. He ultimately dies in Lian Yu after Thea activates a landmine and he takes her place on it. They were lured there by Adrian Chase aka Prometheus so that Oliver could save his son, but yeah. If you haven't seen Arrow, go watch it, please. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Atrocity. Introduced and only seen in the Spider-Man game Spider-Man Edge of Time from 2011, Atrocity was created after Anti-Venom went into a blind rage, accidentally knocking Otto Octavius and Walker Sloan into Walker Sloan's gateway. Time-traveling gateway, by the way. The three then fused in the space-time continuum. I tried getting Taylor to put this on a list for ages, so here I am putting it here because holy damn, this is a villain. Atrocity would occasionally attack Parker or O'Hara with its teleportation tentacles throughout their journey in the Alchemax building, until it eventually revealed itself and attacked Peter Parker. Atrocity was defeated but would later appear again, attempting to kill Peter Parker at the same time that the CEO of Alchemax was fighting Miguel O'Hara. We, as Parker, manipulated Atrocity into attacking electrified pillars, stunning it. Peter then took this opportunity to remove Atrocity's tentacles and send them through the time gateway. These tentacles were then used to drain the Alchemax CEO of his powers. After both Atrocity and the Alchemax CEO, who is revealed to be Peter Parker, were vulnerable, they were knocked into the gateway together simultaneously, resetting the timeline. This absolute monstrosity is also able to teleport himself through time and space, in addition to all of his powers. So yeah, an atrocity for sure. Penultimately, in number 2, Red Goblin. After the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Carnage symbiote was secured in the Lockbox, a privately run vault at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Agents Crane and Coleman, though, infiltrated the Lockbox and stole the symbiote, delivering it to their employer, Norman Osborn. After receiving the symbiote, Osborn bonded with it to become the new Carnage, hoping that it would be the key to regaining his Green Goblin persona. While the symbiote initially seized control of him, Norman offered to teach it more nuanced and sadistic ways to kill people, an offer that the symbiote eagerly accepted, turning over control to its new host, restoring his appearance and purging his body of the nanites, preventing him from augmenting himself with the Goblin formula. Osborn then used the symbiote to kill Phil Urich, and after pretending to be mortally wounded in a rematch against Spider-Man as the Green Goblin, unveiled his new partner by transforming into the monstrous Red Goblin. Osborn used the symbiote to great effect, incapacitating Spider-Man's allies and loved ones, and bonding a portion of it to his grandson Normie Osborn to turn him into the Goblin Child. Spidey was only able to defeat Red Goblin by taunting Osborn, saying that killing him in that form would only give Carnage the credit and not him, which caused him to rip off the symbiote. Then Spider-Man was able to destroy it. Finally, and at number 1, Graviton. If you're not familiar with Graviton, just know that he's essentially Magneto, but with gravity instead of metal, which is already making you think, oh, and that's exactly right. During the Acts of Vengeance crossover storyline, Graviton essentially crushed Spider-Man in their first encounter, only for Spider-Man to come back and absolutely wipe the floor with him when he got the Captain Universe powers. But that may seem a little cheap when talking about a list of Spider-Man villains. So, how about when Graviton was a part of a group of villains that sought revenge on Spider-Man following the loss of his cosmic powers? Spider-Man was still able to defeat Graviton without the power cosmic. During the fight though, Graviton actually disabled Spider-Man's gravity, sending the web slinger floating up into the sky. But Spider-Man was able to web onto a passing plane before he actually got too high. And then when Spidey got back to the ground and to the fight, he took an unprotected by gravity Graviton out with one single punch. So needless to say, Spider-Man has some pretty sick licks to lay out. And at 10, Lex Luthor. While you can't really have a list of Superman villains without Lex, the character isn't all that powerful when you look at it. Sure, he's popular among fans and runs a business, so he has some pull in society and whatnot, but in reality, he's just the dude with mommy issues that is just jealous of Superman. Sure, at some points he may wear and pilot a mech suit that gives him advanced weaponry and whatnot, but otherwise he's just a guy who pays other guys to fight for him. Which I mean, in a sense, money is power, but when compared to other people on this list, and even compared to Superman, Lex doesn't really have much going for him, aside from maybe a little bit of kryptonite. But Lex is constantly losing to Supes as well, which only makes him angrier, and that's just funny as hell to me. We love it when a jerk gets mad because he didn't get what he wants. Lex is kind of like a brat, you know? The kind of brat that will team up with their parents to take out the town's crazy dude if they need to. You know what I mean? Any kid's movie basically has one of these characters. Spiderwick Chronicles, okay? The big sister is pretty much like this. She's like that until she gets her leg bit by a goblin and realizes that her brothers ain't crazy. That's Lex. And at 9, Steppenwolf. Because everyone prefers the theatrical version of Justice League, right? Steppenwolf was introduced in New Gods number 7 from 1972 and is a new god and military general from the planet Apocalypse. Steppenwolf is the brother of Hegra and therefore the maternal uncle of Darkseid, which is a really weird family dynamic given that he is commonly depicted as Darkseid's subordinate, commanding his nephew's army of parademons in conflict against Superman and the Justice League. In the theatrical version of the Justice League movie, Steppenwolf is actually the main villain instead of Darkseid. However, you shouldn't discount the dark side of the moon's uncle, because Steppenwolf is immortal and has vast superhuman strength, speed, and endurance, capable of lifting up to 10,000 tons and jumping huge distances easily. He has superhuman reflexes and a high degree of invulnerability, which increases with his battle armor and allows him to resist most physical and energetic attacks. So while yes, they did manage to defeat him, it was still quite the battle. And at 8, Metallo. John Corbin is usually featured as either a willing volunteer for a surgery or a mortally wounded test subject that needs this surgery to save his life. Metallo first appeared in the Superman comic strip storyline The Menace of Metallo METALLO, which ran from the 15th of December 1958 to the 4th of April 1959. This procedure, whether willing or not, ends up turning John into a cyborg powered by a kryptonite heart, which I think you know what that means. While usually working as another supervillain's lackey, METALLO has the strength to go head to head with the Man of Steel, especially given that he has the strength of Superman and then weakens him with his heart when he's nearby. METALLO's robot body offers him a high degree of protection from physical and energy attacks as well. Among his enhanced abilities, he also no longer needs to eat, sleep, or breathe, and isn't that the dream? His brain is also sealed away inside a shielded alloy skull that has its own power supply, so trust me, I know. Sentient robots that want to kill are definitely not something to be trifled with. At least the timeline for METALLO isn't all that complicated. And at 7, Spider Carnage. Spider Carnage is my favorite alternate version of Spider-Man. From what I could find being introduced in the Spider-Man animated series in the 1990s, this version of Peter Parker shared most of his life with his actually good counterpart. However, the difference between the two was that at some point Aunt May also died, being buried next to Uncle Ben. But thanks to some messing around with interdimensional portals, a version of the Carnage symbiote sensed Peter's anger and combined with him, turning him into Spider Carnage, a villain set on revenge and the destruction of all realities. Peter Parker with the Carnage symbiote and then a desire to destroy reality, oh my god. However, he was ultimately defeated when the main series Peter brought the Uncle Ben from another universe to talk to Spider Carnage and actually brought him down and made him sacrifice himself to save all reality. Damn, I love this show, I really do. If you haven't seen it, it's on Disney+. Please watch it if you can, it's so good. And at 6, MORLUN. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2 number 30 in 2001, MORLUN is one of the most influential Spider-Man villains of all time. MORLUN is potentially the biggest threat Spider-Man has ever faced, even if he isn't the most powerful, since defeating him ended up requiring a whole multiverse of spider people, or as the comics were calling them, spider totems, to take him down. Coming from Earth 1, MORLUN uses these spider totems to stay alive, feeding on their energy and casually just hopping around from universe to universe, squashing their spider person. This guy is the backbone of the Spider-Verse concept, and a load of spider totems had to team up in order to actually beat him, but not without massive casualties. So definitely a powerful villain that ended up losing overall, but maybe I guess he didn't lose since he did kill off multiple spider people before his actual defeat. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how he looks at defeat and what his definition of the term is, since some people could consider killing one person a success, so who knows? Halfway through, and at number 5, Venom 2099. Venom 2099 is actually Kron Stone, the son of Tyler Stone, and as revealed later on, the older half-brother of Miguel O'Hara, who is the Spider-Man of 2099. Talk about family issues. Kron became violent and brutal after suffering for years because of his abusive robot maid. Yeah, this is certainly an interesting origin. Either way, this all drove him into killing Punisher 2099's family. This was also before gaining any superpowers, since the encounter with Jake Gallows, who is Punisher 2099, nearly gets him killed. So Kron flees into the sewer, narrowly escaping with his life. And, you know, since he was absolutely destroyed and hardly clinging to life, he ended up floating down the sewer, eventually running into this strange black ball. This black ball was actually the mutated form of the Venom symbiote that had somehow survived without a host all this time. The symbiote, who was also on the brink of death, bonded to Kron and they became Venom 2099. This new version of the Venom symbiote also had acidic saliva and blood, so that does make him more dangerous than the original Venom. But Miguel was still able to come out on top. Attaboy, Miguel. Spider-Man 2099's costume is so sick, man. And at 4, Carnage. When the Venom symbiote came to rescue its host Eddie Brock from jail, it left an asexually produced offspring behind. This spawn bonded to Cletus Cassidy, a renowned serial killer in the Marvel Universe, through a wound on his hand, merging with his blood and becoming red and black in color. Now going by the name of Carnage, Cletus became a deadly recurring enemy to both Spider-Man and Venom. Eventually, Carnage fought Spider-Man and actually beat him. Realizing that Carnage was another symbiote villain, Spider-Man enlisted the aid of Venom, who was actually retired at the time, to defeat him. After enlisting Venom's aid against Carnage, Spider-Man later used loud noises in an attempt to defeat both Cletus and Venom, which is a stone cold move. However, thanks to Cletus' psychopathic tendencies and the fact that he was created on Earth, he has a lot more abilities than his father, like shooting itself as a projectile and forming razor-sharp weapons to tear through both innocents and his enemies, with chef-like precision, may I add. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Brainiac. First introduced in Action Comics number 242 from 1958, Brainiac is one of Superman's greatest villains and has a personal connection with the hero, since he shrunk and stole the capital capital city of Krypton, known as Kandor, and in some continuities is even responsible for Krypton's destruction. Brainiac's most consistent power is his 12th level intellect, allowing calculation abilities, enhanced memory, and advanced understanding of mechanical engineering, bioengineering, physics, and other theoretical and applied sciences, as well as extensive knowledge of various alien tech, because of course he does. And while that sounds confusing, we as a 21st century society are considered to have a 9th level intellect. Or as his post-crisis version explains, he can process the sort of knowledge over 490 octodectillion beings could, which is absolutely monstrous, okay? Just so you can see it, that's about 490 with another 59 zeros after it people worth of human brain power that he uses on a regular basis. So yeah, he's definitely a smart cookie, but not the one that they use in Squid Game. Is that still a popular thing? Penultimately, in number 2, Darkseid. Darkseid was first introduced in Forever People number 1 and is the tyrannical ruler of Apocalypse and leader of the New Gods. As a new god, however, Darkseid is among the most powerful beings in the DC universe. His most well-known and utilized ability derives from the Omega effect, which allows him to blast Omega beams from his eyes. Omega beams are an intense form of basically heated energy that can either act as a concussive force to subdue an opponent, or as a disintegrating agent capable of eradicating organisms or objects from existence. Awesome. Some superpowered beings, such as Superman, have proven resistant to the beams, although Superman does it with a great deal of pain. The Omega beams can also resurrect fallen beings that have previously been killed by them, and Darkseid will use this sometimes if he wants to punish people who fail him, but they're too valuable to kill at the moment. Darkseid also has pinpoint control over this energy, and his unwavering aim allows him to just control the beams to go wherever he goes. They can travel in straight lines, they can bend, they can curve around corners, even pass through matter and other forms of energy, which just makes these already horrifying things absolutely terrifying. And finally, in at number 1, Doomsday. First appearing in Superman Man of Steel number 17 in 1992, Doomsday was invented to be a beast that would kill Superman, since writers were growing concerned about how other villains relied too much on their tech or brain power to try to beat Superman. This was probably also to show that yes, even Superman can die, to give other heroes I guess something to fear, or I guess the readers something to fear. Doomsday is depicted as a monstrous, genetically engineered being from the depths of prehistoric Krypton. His creator imbued him with a few feelings, mostly hate and the desire for destruction, which, let's face it, same. But this led to him destroying worlds and eventually finding Earth, where he met Superman. Doomsday is the one who killed Superman in Kelly's favorite The Death of Superman storyline, and the big thing with Doomsday is his ability to evolve. Doomsday gradually becomes more invulnerable if not injured beyond his ability to recover. Superman once used a sound gun to greatly discomfort him, but Doomsday's auditory canals closed up, making him impervious to the weapon next time. So basically anything that hurts or kills him basically won't do that a second time, which is absolutely absurd and definitely makes him one of Superman's greatest foes. And you know, he's the only one who killed him, so yeah, that's a number 1.